The forces engaged in the liberation war in Angola were split into three main factions: the Socialist Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, the Front for the National Liberation of Angola, FLNA, and the Pro-Capitalist National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA. Initially, the MPLA and UNITA collaborated against their shared adversary, the Portuguese colonizer. However, as the Cold War intensified, they eventually became enemies. The South African government supported the Portuguese colonial regime in Angola. By February 1968, the MPLA reported that South African helicopters were conducting attacks on their positions in southeast Angola. This intervention marked Angola as the only nation in Southern Africa where South Africa engaged in conventional warfare. Additionally, the United States offered support to the Portuguese. Nevertheless, following a coup in Portugal in 1974, the country was compelled to grant independence to its African colonies. After 14 years of armed resistance against Portuguese rule, the MPLA, FLNA, and UNITA signed the Alvora Agreement in January 1975, which set the stage for Angola's independence. On November 11, 1975, Angola achieved independence, with the MPLA seizing power, supported by the Soviet Union and Cuba. However, political and ideological differences between the MPLA and UNITA soon led to a civil war. Displeased with the MPLA's ascendance, the South African government allied with UNITA to disrupt stability in Angola. During the civil conflict, the MPLA received support from the Soviet Union, including training and equipment, while UNITA was backed by the United States and South Africa. In South Africa, the African National Congress was likewise supported by the Soviet Union and the German Democratic Republic in its struggle against apartheid. Consequently, for the United States and South Africa, UNITA represented a wall against the spread of communism. This polarized geopolitical environment resulted in the ANC aligning itself with the MPLA. From 1976 to 1988, Angola became a military training ground for the ANC's armed wing, Umkhonto weSizwe. The independence of Angola opened doors for various liberation movements in Southern Africa, allowing them to set up military bases within the newly sovereign nation. Notably, organizations such as the Zimbabwe African People's Union and the Southwest African People's Organization established their operational bases in Angola. In early 1976, the African National Congress began discussions with the Angolan government to establish their own military training camps. That same year, the ANC created the Central Operations Headquarters for Umkhonto weSizwe and initiated the establishment of military training facilities in Angola. By the end of 1976, the ANC successfully set up its first military base there. Cassius Make was appointed as the ANC's representative and collaborated closely with Max Moabi to lay the groundwork for base establishments. Mzwandile Philiso was designated as the overall commander for all ANC camps in Angola. The first group of MK soldiers was dispatched to a camp south of Luanda in Gabela. By late October and early November 1976, additional MK personnel were transported from Tanzania to a transit camp referred to as engineering. The Funda camp, located just outside Luanda, also commenced operations in 1976. However, Gabela and engineering camps were closed in 1977, with personnel relocated to Nova Gadengu, commonly known as the University of the South. In 1979, the Quatro base was established as a prison and rehabilitation center for enemy agents captured after infiltrating the ANC. Just before an impending attack, several ANC members were transferred from Nova Gadengu to another camp called Pengo, situated north of Luanda. A transit camp named Cubashe was launched in 1977, followed by the establishment of Fazenda Camp in 1978. After Zimbabwe obtained independence in 1980, ZAPU vacated Angola, but left behind two of their camps, Kakulama and Kamalundi, for ANC use. Additional camps included Camp 32 and Hochi Ayanda. The ANC also utilized residential blocks in Luanda. Residence 1 housed leadership and command members, while Residence 2 served as a general living area. The ANC chief representative had a dedicated house, generously donated by ZAPU upon their departure in 1980. Another building contained Radio Freedom and a warehouse for storing food and clothing for ANC cadres. Additionally, a printing press set up in Luanda, overseen by Patrick Sabina, was responsible for producing the publication, Dawn, and other bulletins. The first group to graduate from the Angolan military training camps was the June 16 detachment, formed from MK's initial recruits following the 1976 uprisings. This was followed by the Moncada detachment in 1978, named after the July 26 movement in Cuba, which famously stormed the Moncada barracks. The Madinonga detachment, named after a woman arrested during the late 1950s peasant revolt, and the Isandlwana detachment, named after the historic battle where Zulu forces defeated the British in 1879, were other notable units trained in Angola. Each detachment was structured with a company commander, a political commissar, a diverse training team, and military instructors. A regional commander oversaw operations, with all Angolan structures reporting to the Revolutionary Council. Each camp had its commander, commissar, chief of staff, and medical team, forming a comprehensive system. The camp commissar, responsible for managing the political aspects of cadres' lives, was supported by a chief of staff, chief of logistics, and a recording officer. At Novakatengwe, each day began early, with comrades rising at 5 a.m. They dressed in their training attire and proceeded to exercise, followed by bathing and breakfast. In malaria-prone areas, cadres were provided with anti-malaria tablets. Throughout the day, they underwent weapons training, which included learning to assemble and disassemble firearms such as AK-47s and pistols, as well as practical use during drills. Training also covered explosive usage like grenades, radio communication, and topography, with the comprehensive military course lasting 6 months. Evenings were filled with cultural activities, including traditional dance like the Indluamu and choral music. On weekends, camp residents engaged in laundry, boot polishing, and sports such as soccer and volleyball, with athletes like Bani Mulokwane recognized for their skills. Significant holidays on the revolutionary calendar, such as Sharpeville Day on March 21st, South African Freedom Day on June 26, and the Great October Socialist Revolution on November 7, were celebrated annually. The ANC leadership underscored the importance of political education alongside military training. Cadres attended courses emphasizing that military actions against the apartheid government were extensions of the party's political goals. Topics included the history of the ANC, the rise of the working class in South Africa, and principles of communism and dialectal materialism. Most political education classes took place in the evenings after daily activities, taught by notable figures such as Mark Shope, Jack Simpson, and Ronnie Castros. Additionally, some cadres were trained to become instructors themselves. Due to the ongoing threats of attacks, camps required constant security, with cadres assigned 2-hour shifts. As Ngulu recounts, the first post was from 6 to 8 p.m., the next was from 8 to 10 p.m., which was generally fine, but undesirable during cultural activities. The shift from midnight to 2 a.m. was unpopular because waking up for duty was tough. The 2 to 4 a.m. shift was the most frustrating, aptly dubbed "break my heart," as it interrupted our sleep. Delays in shift changes often led to tensions among comrades. Despite changes in camp conditions over time, the essential routine and administrative structures remained consistent. Disciplinary issues plagued the camps as well. In 1984, the NC's military tribunal sentenced Thabo Makupete to death for sexually assaulting an Angolan woman. He was executed by firing squad in Luanda. Similarly, Josiah Malobane, Elias Shaka Dumakude, and Jeremiah Maleka Zweni Mdengi faced execution after they shot and killed 2 Angolan women while drunk in a local market. Other disciplinary infractions included the use of marijuana, drinking local liquor, and illegally selling ANC property, which increasingly earned harsh punishments compared to earlier corrective measures. Life in an MK camp was challenging, and stressful conditions sometimes led to confrontations between the ranks and the leadership. Camps had been established with the hope that, once trained, comrades would return to South Africa to combat apartheid. Ngulu expressed this sentiment, stating, "The most traumatic aspect of camp life was the waiting, which fueled our frustrations and despondency. We shuffled from one post to another, from camp to camp, without ever being deployed to the front." This profound sense of frustration, coupled with deteriorating living conditions, contributed to outbreaks of open rebellion against the leadership in Angola. On May 16, 1984, a rebellion erupted at the Pango camp when rebels stormed the ANC armory, disarming the guards and fatally shooting a comrade who resisted surrendering his weapon. This led to a fierce gun battle between the rebels and those loyal to the camp administration. Tragically, Camp Commissar Zenzile Pungule, Staff Commissar Wilson Sithole, David Masego, and a guard were killed in the confrontation. The camp commander and loyalists managed to escape and rallied additional troops led by Regional Commander Timothy Mukwena and Raymond Munacheng. They launched a counter-assault on the camp. When the fighting subsided, 14 guerrillas had lost their lives and the rebellion was quelled. Several rebels were captured and detained, while others fled. A military tribunal, overseen by Sizakele Sixashe, was established to prosecute the rebels. Ultimately, 7 individuals, James Nkabinde, Ronald Msomi, Tembile Hobo, Wandile Ondala, Mahiro, Stopper, and Bullet, were sentenced to death by firing squad. Those who evaded arrest sought refuge with Angolan government and ANC leadership. Upon reaching a camp guided by Soviets and FAPLA forces, they surrendered their weapons and disclosed their mission. The Soviets notified the ANC Security Department, which subsequently arrested the group. They were detained at Pango camp and later transferred to Quatro. In response to the rebellion, the ANC formed a commission of inquiry, chaired by James Stewart, with Commissioners Anthony Mongala, Sizakele Sixashe, Aziz Pahad, and Tujwili. The commission's mandate included investigating the root cause of the rebellion, the nature and validity of grievances, potential outside or enemy involvement, the aims and methods of the rebels, and identifying the ringleader and their motives. The Stewart Commission discovered that deteriorating relations among camp members, elitism in the distribution of privileges, mismanagement of resources, and declining conditions within camps contributed to the rising tensions. Additionally, prolonged stays in the camps without deployment, issues within the NC Security Department, lack of communication with leadership, and various grievances further ignited the rebellion. Quatro Camp was notorious for its harsh treatment of prisoners, characterized by humiliation and brutality. ANC President Oliver Tambo visited Quatro in 1987 and was reportedly alarmed by the conditions he witnessed. The government responded in a variety of ways to the establishment of MK military training camps in Angola. Perhaps the most common response was the infiltration of MK structures by government agents. They would arrive in camps and carry out their work. A prime example of this was the Black September poisoning. In September 1977, everyone at the Novo Katengwe camp was poisoned. Although few details were available regarding the exact time of the poisoning, the effects came to light when comrades went for their evening classes. People vomited and suffered from diarrhea and complained of stomach pains and dehydration. Instructors were forced to cancel classes. The cadres rushed to the camp's clinic, which quickly filled up, and the two doctors, Noma van Changase and Peter Mfelang, were unable to cope with the volume of those taken ill. An estimated 90% of the 500 camp residents, including those at guard posts, were affected. In order to relieve the unimaginable situation, some of the sick were taken to a medical post manned by the Cubans for treatment. The Cubans sent medical personnel and others to man the posts, including camp security. After a few days, health was restored at the camp and there were no fatalities as a result of the poisoning. Upon investigation, the kitchen area was found to have inadequate security. Kenneth Mahamba, who had risen through the ranks of MK to camp commander, and other suspected agents were fingered in the Black September poisoning. On 14 March 1979, the South African Air Force bombed the Novo Katengwe camp with accuracy, killing 1 Cuban soldier and 1 MK member and injuring 14 others. The precision of the attack led to suspicions that informers within the camp had passed information about the camp to the South African Defence Force. Again, Mahamba was suspected of giving information to the South African Defence Force. It was not until 1981, when a man known as Piper was captured and interrogated in Zambia, that Mahamba and others within the ANC were exposed as government agents. Mahamba was detained at Quatro, where he later died. After the raid, the camp was abandoned and recruits were transferred to Pango camp. UNITA, which was supported by the South African government, also targeted MK vehicles transporting weapons and supplies to camps. Targeted assassinations of ANC activists also took place in Angola. On 28 June 1984, Janet Schoon and a 6-year-old daughter, Catherine, were killed by a parcel bomb at their home in Lubango, northern Angola. The target of the bomb, sent by a security police unit, was Janet's husband, Maria Schoon, who was not home at the time. Thus, the apartheid government used a number of ways to pursue and eliminate political activists in Angola. MK camps in Angola were closed or relocated due to escalating threats, organizational challenges, and significant shifts in the political landscape of Southern Africa. According to testimony from South African spy Craig Williamson before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Marius and Janet Schoon were reportedly teaching English to the Cuban soldiers in Angola, which posed a potential risk to the success of South African Defence Force air operations. Following the withdrawal of MK from Angola, OR Tambo issued a stark warning to the South African government. Nowhere on the African continent is South Africa too far, no difficulty too great for this army. We trained in Egypt, we trained in Morocco, trained in Algeria, and went into the country. If Botha and Malan believe we are moving further away, they are living in a dream. They will soon realize it. Angola played a crucial role in the liberation struggles of several Southern African nations, including Zimbabwe, Namibia, and South Africa. The Angolan government allowed liberation movements from these countries to train their fighters and embark on their fight against white minority rule.